Welcome to day 3. Before we begin, I want to name where you are because it's easy to misread this stage as slow. Welcome. My name is Dr. Rivka Edery, and I am the creator of Spatial Sight. So let's look at the last 2 days that you spent on orientation. You know the root principle. Read geometry before meaning. You know the three spatial signals exist. Knowing that a signal exists is not the same as being able to see it. That is what the next several days are for. We're going to take the 3 signals apart, one at a time. And today we take the first one, distance. Here is the sentence I want in your hands before anything else. The gap between 2 cards is not empty space. It's a measurement. This is not a metaphor, and it is not a mood. It is the working definition. When 2 cards land 4 inches apart on your table, the 4 inches is a piece of data that arrived before either card was named. Before either card was even turned over. It is available to you at the moment of the layout. It costs you nothing to record it, and it is the single most reliable thing on the table because it does not depend on your memory of what any card means. You are not asked to believe that. You are asked to record it. Let me place today inside the arc so you know exactly what you're doing. Days 0 through 2 were orientation. I told you the root principle. I told you where the method came from, and I gave you the map of the whole system. That was necessary, and none of it was practice. You cannot orient your way to a skill. Today, the work changes. From here forward, we take the signals one at a time, and we drill them until the eye does the work without being asked. Today, it's distance, not distance plus cluster plus void, all at once in a rush. Just distance, one signal, isolated, held under the light until you can see it reliably. This is deliberate, and I want to defend it for a moment. The instinct, especially for people who are quick, is to want all 3 signals at once and to feel that taking them one at a time is beneath you. Resist that. A signal you can name in a lecture is not a signal you can see under pressure at your own table when the layout is ambiguous and you are tired and you wanted to say something. Isolation is how you build a perception that holds when conditions are bad. So, one signal today, distance. Here is the formal definition, and it is the one from the book. I'm going to read it slowly because every clause in it is load-bearing. Distance is how far cards land from the center, from each other, and from the edges. Proximity suggests entanglement. Distance suggests separation, protection, or delay. Now, hear what that definition does and does not do. It does not say distance means separation. It says distance suggests separation or protection or delay. 3 possibilities held open. The word suggests is doing enormous work. And if you replace it with the word means, You have left this method and gone back to the thing this method was built to correct. And notice the 3 reference points, because most people only ever use one. From the center, from each other, and from the edges. A card can be close to another card and still be far from the center. A card can be near the center and pressed hard against an edge. Those are different geometries, and they're telling you different things. If you only ever measure card to card distance, you are reading a third of the available information and calling it the whole field. One more clause. It is a measurement, not an absence. The gap is a thing. It has a size. It is present on the table in the same way the cards are present on the table. When you look at a layout and your eye slides over the space between 2 cards as though nothing is there, that is the habit we're correcting today. Let us take those 3 reference points one at a time, because today's drill is going to ask you to use all of them. The first is distance from the center. This asks, is the card operating near the core of the situation or out on its periphery? A card that lands far from the center is commenting on the situation. It is not driving it. That is a real distinction, and it changes the weight you give that card later. The card near the center is in the machinery. The card out at the rim is watching the machinery. The second is distance from each other. This is the one everybody already uses, and it is the most intuitive. The gap between 2 cards is the relationship between those 2 cards. But here's the refinement most people miss. The size of the gap is itself the data point. A narrow gap means the 2 are close to merging. They are nearly 1 unit. A wide gap means the distance is doing real work. It is holding something apart, and it is holding it apart on purpose. Do not treat a wide gap as an oversight or as an accident of shuffling. Treat it as a load-bearing wall. The third is distance from the edges. This is the reference point that gets forgotten, and it is the one your workbook explicitly asks you for. There is an edge note field on every single daily record page. A card pressed up against the boundary is a card at a limit. An exit, an entry, a threshold, whatever that card turns out to be, it is at the edge of the field. And that placement is information you had before you turned it over. 3 reference points. Today, you use all 3. I want to show you the 2 ways of looking at the same table, because the difference is the whole lesson. The common habit, and this is not a criticism, it is simply how a trained eye behaves, is that the eye jumps from card to card. Card, card, card. The gap between them registers as nothing. It reads as the part of the table where the reading is not happening. And distance only gets noticed at all if it is extreme. If one card is halfway across the room, you might mention it. Spatial sight inverts that. The eye measures the space first, then the cards. The gap is treated as an object with a size. It gets recorded before any card is turned over. And this is the part that will feel strange, and I want to prepare you for it. Distance gets logged even when it is unremarkable. That last line is the discipline, and it is the and it is the one that people quietly skip. If you only record distance when it is dramatic, you have built a log that only contains dramatic distances. And a log that only contains dramatic distances cannot tell you what a normal one looks like. You will have no baseline. You will have 30 days of exceptions and no rule. So, on the days when the cards land in a perfectly ordinary spread and the gaps are unremarkable, you record the unremarkable gaps. That is not wasted effort. That is you building the baseline against which later something genuinely unusual will stand out. You cannot see an anomaly without a norm, and the norm is built out of boring days.